Hello everyone and welcome to URBONUS podcast. I hate these intros because they are so static, but this time I'm really glad to present you this unusual lineup I'm having today. There's Eric McCollum, pretty frequent guest we're having on our podcast recently. So hi to you, Eric. Glad to have you here.
Hello, thanks for having me.
But also we have Augustas Šuliauskas, our video breakdowns guy who is making all these video breakdowns the entire season on BasketNews.com website and on our YouTube channel. He's a great friend of mine. He's a great basketball mind as well. Another hardworking guy with a lot of interesting ideas to share with everybody. So Augustas, welcome to the show.
Hello guys, happy to be here and we'll see about the interesting ideas later.
Okay, it's the end of June, but we have a lot of interesting basketball events happening. So we have season finale of Spanish League, Italian League, and what's also funny that we still have French League finals. It's still not over yet, although national teams are already playing friendly games for the World Cup qualifiers. They're preparing for the Eurobasket, but guys in France, they're still playing there. Okay, that's their problem. But anyways, in this podcast, we will discuss the final series of the ACB League, also the Italian League finals. We have this approved EuroCup list of teams for the next season. So we will compare it to what Basketball Champions League can offer. And we will have some other different topics. But probably we should start with the ACB finals, right? Barcelona failing to defend the ACB title. Madrid won the series in the best of 5. They won 4-1. A lot of shitstorm on Twitter directed to Barca, especially starting from Coach Jasikevičius. Then there were some misinterpreted interview of Nikola Mirotic. Then we see this report that Calathes is unhappy in Barca. There's tense relationship with Coach Jasikevičius and he wants to leave. Then he goes on Instagram and he comments that it's fake news. I mean, a lot of stuff is going on in Barcelona. But the main question where we will start this discussion is what happened to Barca in the end of the season, where they were kind of labeled as high odds to win the EuroLeague at first and then to defend the title. What would be your main thoughts about that?
I mean, it's obvious they had a lot of problems at the end of the season. And in my opinion, the two most important ones were the size of Madrid did too much damage for them. And the second one was just switching defense was too big, too strong. Some perimeter lineup was not as good and as dangerous as Barca would have wanted. And I don't know if we are saying names, but I think Calathes, who is rumored to be leaving maybe after this season, I think he had a really hard time because Madrid was helping off of him in every penetration. Whenever they switched, he was passing inside and then everyone just collapsed inside and they were leaving people open and they were just closing the line so much for Nikola Mirotic and for others, for Barca's bigs, that I think it was a really huge problem in this series.
So you think Calathes should move out of Barcelona, right? It would be better than for worse.
I mean, he was a problem last year in the Zenit series, in the quarterfinals. Not the only problem, obviously, but I think Barca needs to make some changes this summer, and I think he's the player that should be moved, in my opinion. That would help definitely. Obviously, there are rumored to be another two more additions. I don't know, maybe even more, but I think he's the one that has to be changed with some more explosive, more scoring type of guy, and that would help Barcelona in the long run.
What do you think, Eric?
I think he brings up some interesting points. I think, first of all, I think Calathes is a great point guard, right? He can see the court, he can create. He's a triple-double threat, but he's a guy that has his most success when the system is catered to him and built around him. As you saw in Panathinaikos, in a heavy pick and roll offense, he was able to be surrounded by shooters. The paint was open, and he was able to kind of create, facilitate, rebound, get out in transition. And Barcelona's style of play doesn't really suit that. There's some games where just because he's talented and he's a high-level point guard, he's going to have big performances. He's going to have some good games. But to find that consistency that you're used to seeing from him, I mean, the year before he left Panathinaikos, you're talking about an MVP caliber type season. I want to say he flirted with a triple-double at least 6 or 7 times. I think he got 1 or 2 that year. And I think it would help the offense if they had a more scoring / shooting type of point guard who can kind of create still, but who can kind of open the floor. Because if you give Mirotic space to operate, he's unguardable. He's unstoppable. But with the way the system is, you need to get out in transition. You need to utilize Calathes' speed, his pick and roll game. You need to space the court and keep that paint open so he can do what he does. He also, is a guy who posts up a lot in Panathinaikos, and he used that size advantage. I think Barcelona just looked burnt out. I think they looked tired. I think they looked defeated. As soon as the EuroLeague season didn't go as planned, you could tell mentally, physically, they were drained. It doesn't help when your best scorer on the perimeter, Corey Higgins, faces a serious injury. He's not able to get back into form just because of the time he missed. You calculate him being there. Think about the performance he had in the last Final Four, the big shot he hits against Milan. Not only what he does offensively, he's a two-way player. He can go there and guard the best offensive player on the other team who's on the perimeter and give them hell. So I think missing him really put a lot more pressure on Calathes and the other guards to have to score. And that's not what Barcelona wanted them to do. And if you have a healthy Corey Higgins, you have him in the flow with the chemistry of the team, I think you see a different Calathes and a different performance, and it takes off a lot of pressure. But when guys go down, when guys have injuries, you start to see the true weaknesses of teams. And, I think for Barcelona, it was the guard depth, and they really needed to improve that maybe this summer. Maybe there's something they can do. But as we know, the market is extremely tight.
Yeah, I think there were many points that were connected with each other. You had a good point, Eric, about mental breakdown Barcelona had after the Final Four. I talked with some guys and they kind of agreed that they felt that mental breakdown. And Corey Higgins, I mean, I don't think that Calathes was the main problem. And especially if he had a better scorer next to him, maybe Real Madrid couldn't use his main flaws that much. But when you have your main scorer of your team, your elite scorer, averaging only 5 points in the final series on 26% of field goal shooting, I think it's just impossible to win series against such a talented team like Real Madrid. And it's not only about guards. I mean, we can go basically position by position. You look at Brandon Davies, and I like this guy, really. He's one of the best all-around centers, if not the best in the EuroLeague. But it seems like that he's in Milan since April. I mean, in his mind, in his head, I'm just missing soul in his game, because Brandon Davies was all about soul, basketball soul on the court. That's why he was beloved by the fans, by Saras, both in Žalgiris and in Barcelona. But he was just missing. And one other important factor was that Sertac Shanli was injured in the semifinal series, and also he lost his rhythm in the second part of the series, but he was an important piece for Barca. I mean, in the regular season, he was averaging like 13.5 points per game against Real Madrid, because he's the guy who can stretch the floor, who can use who can play against Walter Tavares, to take him from the paint, and the player you can use to beat Real Madrid through Tavares. So he was also missing. He scored 3 points in the entire series. Brandon Davies was also underachieving. I mean, there were so many different factors that didn't allow Barcelona to win this series, and it's probably not only one problem. And maybe it's also, now it's easy to get lost what was the main issue of Barcelona. So I think that they have to be very precautious with the changes they're doing this summer.
One random fact that I was looking yesterday before this pod, Real had lower field goal percentage, Real had lower 3-point percentage, the same free throw percentage as Barcelona. But the biggest difference, and they still won 3-1. So the biggest difference was just the number of shots each game. They had 68 attempts on average, while Barcelona had only 55. So this means, and the biggest difference is on the offensive glass, is on the offensive rebounds, like 14.5 offensive rebounds versus 6 of Barcelona. This just tells you, obviously, the turnovers also, Real had less turnovers than Barcelona on average, but 8 offensive rebounds just tells you the front court was not doing a good enough job. And Brandon Davies was getting outplayed big time by Tavares, by Poirier, by Yabusele was really also crashing the glass each time, as did Deck. So you can just mention these names, but I think particularly in this series, the front court also didn't step up at all and got dominated by Real.
Yeah, I think that Real, they were really more hungry. I was shocked by the difference of the intensity of the game, and Barcelona just couldn't match the intensity that Real Madrid offered throughout the series, and that was also the huge difference. I just think that they were more hungry. Probably they were mad because of all the problems they had. Maybe they were mad because Barcelona was just beating their up through 2 seasons actually in a row. The general record between these two teams was horrible for Real Madrid. A lot of players stepped up, and if we talk about Barca losing the series, we cannot not give credit for Real players, and especially X-factor players like Fabian Coser, for example. I mean, Real had some serious doubts about his future in the club. He's on an expiring contract, and they were thinking about parting ways. But this guy, he scores 18 points in the semifinal of the EuroLeague to kill Barcelona. Now he's killing them in the decisive game of the final series with clutch 3-pointers, with this iconic gesture. In the finals, he was averaging like 13 points. He was the best perimeter player in Real Madrid. So he was just one of these guys who deserved this credit. I mean, Walter Tavares, I don't remember watching better Tavares when in the game 4, for example. A lot of other guys. It was an incredible team win, first and foremost, from Real Madrid side.
But even with this loss, I think Barcelona needs to let it marinate. You had a good season. You were at the top of the lead in both leagues. You don't need to panic. Right now, don't make emotional decisions. Continuity is very important. So you keep your core if you can. You keep those guys intact, and you inject a little hunger, a little youth. I really think they need a pure scorer, someone who can score and create, just in case you have an injury to Higgins or to another guard, and someone who can kind of just change the pace. And I think they lack that. So you look for that on the market. Find a pure scorer, preferably a combo. And, from there, I think, it's going to be tough to replace Davies if he's, rumored to go to Milan. Like, as they say, it's going to be tough to replace that. They probably could have had an opportunity, with maybe Motley, but, they didn't pull the trigger quick enough. So now they're going to be scrambling, trying to find an athletic, energizing 5 who can guard multiple positions, who can switch, and, who's also disciplined enough to handle Saras'
Vesely.
Yeah, Jan Vesely is coming to the team. So, but you're not the biggest fan of Jan Vesely, right? I remember you in the last part you said that you prefer Davies rather than Vesely.
I do. I prefer Davies because he's a better shooter, better face-up game. You can give him the ball in the post. You can run sets. Vesely's a good pick-and-roll player, right? He's starting to get older. He doesn't play above the rim as much as he used to, but he's still, a talented player. But he just doesn't provide the offensive versatility that Davies does. So I think you're getting the downgrade defensively, but he will play hard every night. He will bring that hunger. He will fit in the system. I just feel like the departure of Davies forces other people to step up offensively, and without another offensive weapon coming in, it could be, the same type of task for Barcelona. They'll be good in the regular season. They'll have a lot of success, but once you get in that series and teams start to really adjust to your style, they know all of your sets. That's when you need guys who are just more talented, who have ability to put the ball in the hole. I don't care if it's a big or guard. You need guys who can flat out score in this series when offense points are tough to get and the offense becomes stagnant.
What do you think? Is Scotty Wilbekin an answer for Barcelona? Because what is interesting that Wilbekin is rumored to join Fenerbahce on a buyout, but from what I know, it's basically between Barcelona and Fenerbahce. And, you never know. Maybe Barca will make this late run for Wilbekin to bring him for this scoring role in Barca. Do you think that he would be an answer for Barca? Or probably, from looking from the perspective of the player, he could be a great fit in Barca, but the question is if it's a great fit for Saras' system. Probably that's also an important thing to discuss.
Yeah, I think there's no way Scotty's going to choose Barcelona over Fener. If he does, I would be extremely surprised. If you go to Fener, he has a Turkish passport, right? He'll be one of the main guys. They'll pay him well. It's a good organization, just like Barcelona, but the freedom. We've seen what Tudis does with his players. He allowed Mike James the freedom to go be himself. Mike, the year, COVID year, he was averaging 20 points a game. He probably was the MVP of the EuroLeague before its season finished. You see the freedom he gave Will Clyburn. They're free. They're playing in transition. They're flowing. Scotty likes to shoot 8, 9 3-pointers a game. I can't imagine Saras allows that to happen. So if I'm him as a player, you can't just think about just the money. You can't just think about just the city. Although Istanbul is an amazing city, Barcelona is an amazing city. I'm thinking, what's best for my career? Where's the longevity? Where can I be comfortable? Where can I be me? Because it's extremely difficult to come into a system and to change who you are, to change your identity. You've been this player for 20 plus years. And now you're coming somewhere where a coach wants you to run the system, run the set, be a true guard. I don't know. Unless Saras is going to come and give some freedom and allow him to be him, there's no point to sign a player if you handcuff him. So if I'm Scotty, if it's between Fener and Barcelona, it's a clear choice, Fener. And I always say you go where you're needed, not where you're wanted. Barcelona wants you. Fener desperately needs you. And he can be the guy that kind of helps put them over the top. And you see the additions there where he can kind of make his impact and his stamp.
Yeah, but I mean, Itoudis is also a tough coach. I mean, you can ask Mike James, you can ask Nando De Colo, you can ask Nikola Milutinov. I mean, he's also really a tough coach. I mean, the level
Super
of demanding,
tough.
Yeah, it's also very high. So it's not that easy. I mean, I
But
know
he
that
gives
there's
freedom.
narrative.
He gives freedom
Okay, that's
to players
that's an advantage over
who
Saras.
show that they deserve it. I haven't seen Saras allow players to break the system, although he's a great coach. How many players actually on the court look free, look relieved, look like they're having fun?
That was another point in the finals, in my eyes.
I think
One team was
Laprovital is
playing.
that demon. I think that Laprovital is the guy who's always trying to break these rules. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I completely agree with you, Eric. I mean, that's a good point, and that's probably the main reason why he will go to Fener instead of Barca.
That was another point, like in the finals, watching these final games. One team was playing completely free, out hustling the opponents, and Barca was just looked tired, like Eric, you said, and just not seemed like they didn't want to be there. Some of the players, which is weird for the final series. You know, I know it's a long season. I know it's June, but some players might want to go home. But it's the finals. You expect players to be playing at 100%, and it was weird seeing one team do that and the other not so much. Just there were many 50-50 balls that they were losing, and I've even heard Saras saying on timeouts, you know, we're losing every 50-50 ball. Guys, you cannot win series like this or finals. So. Okay,
so we're heading to that part, to the second question of this topic. There were some rumors, there were some talks that Saras was on a hot seat, and I can kind of confirm that even in the end of the EuroLeague season, there were at least sources were suggesting that something is going on, and that Barca is thinking a lot of different scenarios, and especially when it was not clear if Xavi Pascal will be allowed to leave Zenit or not. There were some serious talks that they might swap Saras with Xavi. I mean, that Xavi could replace Saras in Barcelona. But then we saw what happened with Maccabi, and it seemed like that Zenit locked Xavi Pascal for another season. So there's no alternative for Saras, and from what I hear right now, that it's kind of 99% that he will stay for the final year of his contract with Barcelona for the next year. But the question remains the same. Do you think that Šarūnas Jasikevičius is the one to be blamed for the outcome of this season? And we are discussing all these things about his system, about being strict. And is he the main reason why Barca didn't show the full potential of these talents and players on the court? Do you agree with that take? Who will be the first one with the take?
I'll take it. I think Saras is a great coach. He's very strict. He has a system. What he's good at is selecting guys to fit into a system and getting the team to buy in. I think we have to remember where Barcelona was before he arrived. They weren't making it to the final of the EuroLeague. They weren't first place all season.
They weren't making the Final Four, actually. So,
like Barcelona, I know they're thirsty, they're hungry to improve, to take that title. It's been a while since they took a EuroLeague, but you have to know that it's a process, it's steps. He's still early in his coaching career. There's things he's going to continue to learn. He's going to continue to improve, but he's already a damn good coach. And so it's not his fault that they lost the game. They just didn't play at the level. Some things happen unlucky. Like basketball is a tricky sport, but he showed his ability as a coach with the domination of the EuroLeague throughout the whole year, with the domination of the Spanish league. But the tricky thing with finals is, especially in the EuroLeague, I mean, it's one game. Anything can happen. I mean, you see it. You saw it so much in the EuroCup this year with the one game format in the playoffs. All the top teams were just losing in incredible fashion on their home floor. So imagine on a neutral site. So I think he's not the problem. I do think that with his main guys, and I think it will come with time, that there's going to have to be more freedom given to them to make those decisions on the court, to make those choices. Because as we see, teams who have given freedom to the main players have had a lot of success. Look at Efes. Adaman gives Micic and Larkin the ultimate green light. And they've continued to win, have success. And, there are coaches who have a strict system who play well with that. Javi and Zenit, he showed his system, showed it works. Saras showed his system, showed it works. But I think there's a balance. Too free may be an issue. Too structured could be a problem. But I do think that they need to keep him. I mean, who else are they going to get in the market who can handle the pressure, the expectations of a Barcelona job, who can get people to buy in, who has that name power, but also has that respect in Europe? I mean, the only other coach I think that, has won titles that's available is Sferopoulos, the old Maccabi coach that was released there. So I think other than that, I mean, your options are pretty limited as far as coaches with name, experience, and brand recognition.
I completely agree with you, Eric. Like, I don't see any other names possible right now that would be better than Saras. And even before that, I don't think them losing in the semifinals of the EuroLeague and losing in the ACB finals is that big of a deal. Some people are trying to make. I mean, looking at their rosters, even depleted ones in the finals, Real's front court lineup was, in my eyes, stronger and is stronger. So I don't see a big problem of them losing it. Obviously, it makes you question some of his choices. Like you say, if he's maybe too strict, and he would need to allow players more freedom. But I think this is not the change Barcelona needs to make this summer. I think they need to continue with him, and I think they just need to adjust some of the pieces on the roster. And they will be good to go again to compete for both titles, even 3 titles next year.
Yeah, I think that basketball people and basketball fans, mainly in Barca, they have to be patient. I mean, because when you think about it, and when you think about what he did in Barca in 2 years, it's pretty remarkable. Because in 2 seasons he won both Copa del Reys, he won the ACB title in his first year. He made 2 Final Four appearances. Barca didn't make the Final Four since 2014. He won the EuroLeague regular season twice. And I know that regular season doesn't mean a lot, but at the same time, I believe that the highest level performers, the consistency tells about the highest level. And Barca was probably the most consistent team in the EuroLeague for 2 years. And that's a big thing. And just as you mentioned, guys, I mean, EuroLeague Final Four is a knockout event then where everything can happen. So, I mean, some smart people said that the result is an ambition, but your goal has to be the performance. And I think that Barca was performing at elite level, and in the second season, in the end of the second season, they just fell short in a lot of different ways, starting from a mental breakdown with some players getting injured. He didn't have his main scorer. His main center was underperforming. There were a lot of different factors which he cannot control. But at least he tried to control the process, and the general process was good. Just the outcome was not okay. But, well, it's sports. It happens. And not in the most cases, the team with the biggest budget wins the titles. And yeah, as Augusto said, I mean, I remember that in January we were just saying that it's unfair that Real Madrid signed Gabriel Deck because their roster already looked completed. I mean, the highest level roster. So you cannot underestimate the opponents Barcelona faced. And the thing is that with Barca and with every great coach, even with the best coach, we have to be so patient. For example, I just checked how our elite, or as we say, top coaches in Europe performed with their teams. And for example, even for Pablo Lasso, it took 4 years to win the EuroLeague with Real Madrid. With Ergin Ataman, the great Ergin Ataman, it also took 4 years. Okay, there was a COVID year, so let's just say 3 years. It took 3 years for him to win the EuroLeague. Even Željko Obradović, when he came in Fenerbahce, it also took 4 years for him to win the EuroLeague. Itudis was probably one of the most luckiest coaches because he won the EuroLeague in his second season with CSKA Moscow. But I mean, these examples tells us a lot that it's not that easy to win the EuroLeague. And I mean, in Spain, I mean, when you have such an opponent like Real Madrid, it's not a tragedy to win one ACB title instead of two. So I just think that Barca fans and some people from basketball community, they have to be patient. I know that Saras has a lot of hype and expectations because of his name, because of his success story with Žalgiris, pretty early success story. But we have to be patient because we cannot forget the fact that when he came to Barca, he already had the roster set for him. And when we discuss Nick Calathes' option as a main point guard, some other players, these were not Saras' choices, and they were signed for a long-term contract. So maybe this summer will help him to make the adjustments he needs to finally reach the ultimate goal. But even if that won't happen, I just don't believe. I'm the guy who believes in the process and who thinks that the process, it's all about process in basketball. Because, as I said, sometimes you just cannot control the result. And it's not that easy to win in Europe and to be the best team in the EuroLeague or even in Spain with such a great competition.
To add to that, I think another thing that maybe is undervalued or underestimated is the handling of players in the season, right? So if you're a player and you're seeing something on Twitter about how Barcelona wants you back, but they want you to take a pay cut, and you're in the middle of the season, like, this is not the time or the place for that. If you want to keep guys engaged and motivated, you probably shouldn't be talking about somebody taking less money while you're about to enter the playoffs. I know if we're seeing it as fans, as people of the game, the players are seeing that as well. And that's something that doesn't sit right with you. That's something that needs to be in-house. It's a conversation between the agent and, a president, whatever the case may be. But, and if that news is false and it's leaked, I think an owner or somebody in the front office needs to come out and say, this is not true. We're not doing negotiation with players right now at this time. But certain things, if you're seeing that you're getting replaced, there's someone coming in for you. There's two type of ways that players handle this. Some players are strong mentally. It pushes them to want to do more to fight, as you saw with Fab, with the shots he hit for Real Madrid in the clutch. He was reading that stuff about him. I'm sure, that's why he was so passionate. That's why he was so demonstrative. He felt that and he enjoyed playing in Real Madrid, and he took it as, I'm going to show you something. Whereas sometimes other guys, it could break them. It could make you less engaged or not want to play. So I think, when you combine all these factors, sometimes it's not everything that happens on the basketball court. When you're wondering why you're missing 50-50 balls, you might be wondering why guys aren't playing with that same effort and energy. It's because they feel like you gave up on them. And I don't know the players personally to say how they felt, how they took that, how their motivation was. But I'm telling you that those things affect us, and it affects your mindset and your approach. And when your team is there for you, the coaches, the front office, everyone is there fighting for you, regardless of if you want me next year or not. If you have the respect and decency to at least wait until the season is over, I think you'll get a different attitude and a different level of engagement.
Yeah, we're just getting back to the topic I raised in the previous pod. We just need to set some tampering rules, some free agency rules. You cannot sign deals in February. You cannot recruit players in March, because I had some discussion, and I was told even by some GMs that they did these recruiting things even on purpose to make some damage for their opponents. So it's just crazy. It's so different compared to the NBA basketball.
Yeah, I was about to say, Donatas, you want to make this the NBA. You want patience from the owners and from the general managers, and you want tampering rules. Like the two things that you get in the States, trust the process and no tampering. are we leaving Barcelona topic? Because the last point I wanted just to ask you guys, the two non-European Union players, I think, played a huge part in this series. And Barcelona chose to register for the first two games, Higgins and Hayes, and tried to play a lot through Hayes in the post. It didn't really work out. And then they switched from game 3, registering Higgins and Exum. But Exum was not a huge factor either. And what do you guys think about their adjustments on the roster, and what should they do making their roster? How should they go about this? Because having full roster in the EuroLeague, having all those 3 guys I would say it was a huge success, especially in the regular season. But in the finals, it was a tricky question, because without Hayes, they just punished Deck from the 3rd position. They played against Kuric in the post, especially in game 4, and it was a huge problem. And Higgins wasn't in shape, so it was a tricky call. How would you go about this question, just making the roster for the next season?
That's why Barca goes after Scottie Wilbekin, because not only he's a great fit for Fenerbahce because of his Turkish passport, just like Mike James is for Efes, but the Turkish passport allows, to go under these rules, and it makes Wilbekin not as an American player for Barcelona. So that's why this move would make a lot of sense. And, hearing all these talks, it seems like that Corey Higgins is expected to leave the team then. We saw these rumors about Virtus Bologna, which I think that Corey would be a great fit for them. So I think that there's already things are already happening, and things will be changed. And I kind of agree with you. I mean, I was missing Exum. The way he played in the regular season, he was a different player. I mean, his energy was unmatched in even in games against Real Madrid, and we just discussed how Barca was missing an energy. So he was great, but then he was off, and I think that it also didn't help him, neither Hayes, that sometimes they're in, sometimes they're out of the roster. So it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to find that balance. And for sure, when Barca will try to sign these players, they will think about these limitations, at least for the Spanish playoffs.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with Saras. You always have to play Higgins. I know he's not in shape. I know he battled injuries, but you have to ride with your guy. That's a guy who's made big shots, who's been there. He's a champion. So regardless of how he played, that's a guy that I would have kept dressed. And then, you flip-flop between Hayes and Exum just because they don't have the same value on the court as a Higgins who's in shape does. I think Exum showed a lot of potential. He just didn't put together consistent stretches, but he did show you glimpses of what he can do and the player he can be. And I think, him coming back on contract next year, having that preseason, having the system, knowing what to expect, I think you'll see him take another leap because he's still a very young player. But, I think a passport player would be very helpful, who can score, who can play. I think another guy who would have been available, who probably would have been at a fair price, would have been Elio Kobo. I think he would have been a good fit as someone who could come in and Saras could kind of tutor to do his thing. But, now he's going to Monaco. So, that's that. But they're going to have to find some guys. And if the ACB is as important as, I believe it is to be, when you select your team, I'm sure they're going to cross match to see, who Real Madrid has, to see the matchup, see how it works. But there's definitely going to be some decisions made, and losing Higgins is really going to hurt if he's for sure not coming back. That's going to be detrimental to them because of what he does as a two-way player and his stability as a big shot maker.
Yeah, let's say that Wilbekin is going to Fenerbahce. Higgins is going to Virtus. We have Okobo having deal with Monaco. What do you see as the, let's say, best options for Barca at the scorer position? I have the list on my eyes, and maybe Ife Lundberg would be an answer as well. He has Danish passport. That helps a lot. I'm not so sure if he will stay in the NBA. For me, he looks like a little bit more Saras type of guard he could control. Other than that, I don't know. Tyler Dorsey is becoming a free agent. He might stay in Olympiacos, but it's not clear yet. Do you have any other options for this role?
One I thought that maybe could be a good fit. I heard he's rumored to maybe get a passport with Lorenzo Brown. So, if that's true, if he is a player who gets the passport, he could be a perfect fit just because his ability to play the pick and roll, his ability to live in the paint, to score, to get to the free throw line. And he's a bigger size guard, kind of what Saras likes and looks for in a profile. So I think, he could be a great fit, but that's depending on, if the passport comes. Another guy who isn't a scorer, but if they really are true or false on the Calathes rumors, Perrier Henry is a guard who has a passport, who's played in Spain, who knows the ACB league. And he's a guy that, rumored to be Real Madrid is after. So anytime you see kind of your rival go after a player, sometimes you automatically go after him too. So, those are two guys that I think could be a fit, but, a scorer would have been great there. A Jordan Lloyd, a Kobo, one of those guys, it could have been a perfect fit. I guess Mike James is still a free agent. That could also be an option. It would be Mike James. But I think it would be a level of respect between them. I think, because Saras values winning more than anything. And I believe if, Mike is the same way. And if you put those two together, it could be beautiful or it could be fireworks. You just never know. But it's tough because when you wait, longer in the market and, you don't scoop guys up. And since all the seasons end at different times, this league ends here. The French league ends late. The Spanish league ends later. Sometimes other teams have an advantage in signing players because their league is finished, and they're able to start the negotiations and they kind of be, more upfront and louder with it. So, I think they're going to have some problems and it's just a limited market.
Yeah. Let's not forget that Thomas Satoransky is also rumored to join Barcelona. I'm just not sure if he's about to replace Calathes or he might play next to Calathes. I kind of doubt it because I don't really think that it's a good fit next to Calathes because they're kind of the same type of players. But at the same time, just as Eric told, that Saras likes big guys, big lineups. So you never know. With Saras, he signed Sertac Shanli, he signed Nigel Hayes, and many people were just raising their eyebrows. The same with Nicolas Laprovitola. So Saras has his own idea of basketball and his path to winning titles. So you never know. But at the same time, probably in the upcoming weeks, all these questions will be answered soon. And maybe it's about time to go to Italy right now, Ogi.
Yeah, sure.
So Milan winning the title again after 4 years, right? It's been a while for Milan. And we can remember that last year, Milan was swept. And that's probably the good example what it means to have a mental breakdown after the EuroLeague season and how hard it's, to gather yourself again for the domestic league competitions, because we see all these examples. Anadolu Efes, they won the EuroLeague and it was the end of the season for this team. They barely managed to go through Galatasaray in the semifinals. They weren't very competitive in the final series. And I think that maybe the same happened to Virtus Bologna. Reaching the ultimate goal, getting to the EuroLeague, winning the EuroCup. Maybe it was another, turning point of their season where they just couldn't deliver mentally. And of course, with all the credits going to Milan from game perspective, they were just really great team in the final series.
I think it was the exact opposite situation that happened in Italy last year. Like Milan went to the Final Four, got beaten by the last shot of Higgins, and after that, their season just went straight down. This year, Virtus won the EuroCup. They did what they had to do with the roster, with the finances they have. They reached their goal, reaching the EuroLeague. And after that, I didn't see Milan's shape after the losing quarterfinals started to go up, and they looked really good, and they reached the peak of their performance, I think, in the final series. Bologna wasn't like that. Bologna's season most important goal was in May, and they did that, and you could see that. Just and obviously some other Milan played great. They had they were in really good shape, and I think everyone on their roster did something good in each game. They were more consistent. Probably only Devon Hall had a bit subpar performances, but he was also contributing to the team's success, while Virtus was just making too many mental errors. They were not as good in my eyes in the shape as they were during the EuroCup run. So I think it played a huge part.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think Milan was just a better team. I think they had more time together. They were similar. You got to remember, Bologna put in a lot of guys in the middle of the season. This is extremely difficult. You got Shingelia coming over from Cesca, Hackett coming over, and they're very good players, but they never quite fit with the performance that they had in Cesca that they had there. And I think once you reach your goal, it's exhausting mentally, physically. It's almost like you kind of shut down, and they put so much emphasis and attention on the EuroCup, and rightfully so, that they took the title. They put themselves in a position to be in the EuroLeague, and that's big for the organization and the club. But when you're playing against a team like Milan, you need to be focused. And I think they were more hungry after getting beat last year, getting drugged. It wasn't even competitive. And then coming up short in the EuroLeague, I think they had time to regroup. I think a lot of that team that was there last year that experienced that loss, you feel embarrassed and you want to come out and you want to redeem yourself. And the fact that they did it without the starting point guard, Malcolm Delaney, just goes to show that Milan was the stronger team. I mean, you're missing a key component to your team, somebody who can defend, someone who can kind of orchestrate the offense, and who's known to be a winner and to hit big shots in a crucial moment. He's battled his injury histories, but I think it's safe to say that, he's a talented player. And I think no one would argue that. Any other team who would lose their lead playmaker, I think it would be big problems for their team, and it would be hard to come back from that.
Yeah, we have another young man on the podcast, right?
Oh man, my son just came down here.
Another McCollum in the pod is just a big pleasure.
Yeah, I don't know why he came down
CJ
here.
or who?
His name is Eric Legend McCollum III. I'm about to tell his mom to come get him.
Okay, no worries. Take your time. So just on top of that, when Eric is still dealing with his own issues, I just wanted to add that, I mean, I was impressed the way. I just think that one of the main reasons was that Milan had more depth compared to the last season. That's the way they were building their roster for this year. You can remember that they lost players like Punter, like Zach Lidey, and to replace Punter, they signed like 3 guys: Troy Daniels, Devin Hall, Jerian Grant. For Lidey, they signed Dinos Mitoglou. Okay, he was out, but still. Then Bentil replaced him. There was Nicola Melli. I mean, more bodies to survive this very tough and demanding season. And we cannot forget that Milan were eliminated in the playoffs and they had more time to recover. The main issue last year was that team was just exhausted, and not just physically but mentally too, because Ettore Messina is another very demanding coach, and it's not easy to keep up the whole season and to stay on the highest level. So this year it was different, and I really love this versatility of this team. Even Jerian Grant, I mean, his future was questioned at the club during the season. There were rumors that Milan was looking for a replacement, and Grant was delivering. In a couple of games, he was super important. We have this old guy, Luigi Datome, I mean, scoring over 20 points in this game 6 of the finals. Nicola Melli, 2 games with over 20-point performances. A lot of other guys, Chacho Rodriguez, Kyle Hines, as always. I mean, it was a team win. Probably only Shavon Shields was the, let's say, most consistent players in terms of playing, I would say, superstar level in all 6 games, maybe except from 1. But other than that, it was a team win, and I kind of missed that team in Bologna.
It's not bad when you have a second point guard, Chacho Rodriguez, huh? It's like having Poirier as your backup center, which could be the starting center in any other EuroLeague team.
The funny thing is that I can see GMs of Bayern, Alba, Žalgiris listening to this podcast and hearing us complaining that, oh, maybe Barca needs Wilbekin instead of Corey Higgins. Oh, is Vesely a good fit as a good replacement for Brandon Davies? I mean, these are players from the top shelves, and they're just choosing from a way different level players, and it's way difficult job for them to to upgrade their teams and to reach some success in the EuroLeague. So it's kind of first world problems these clubs are having.
So you're telling we need salary cap also now here?
No.
No salary cap, guys.
No salary cap. I think that's what makes the game more fun. Finding the right players, finding the right fits. I mean, you see sometimes the big money teams don't win. Sometimes the smaller budget teams find a way. I think that's the beauty of basketball. You can compare it to college basketball because that's the European flow, right? It's more like college where every game counts, the physicality, the lack of spacing in the paint, the toughness. And, every team doesn't just have the same resources. Every team doesn't have the same facilities. And I think where you'll start to see teams, you'll see who is a really good coach. You'll start to see who's a really good GM, who's, excellent in the front office. And I think it would be a disservice to the players to have a salary cap because, if you continue to work on your craft and compete at a high level and you grind every summer and you put yourself in a position to make a certain amount of money or to play for a certain club, this salary cap would, limit not only your resources, but, limit your opportunities to play for certain historic organizations. You might want to play for a team with a lot of tradition, but if they have a salary cap, they can only sign so many players. So I think salary cap just is a bad idea. I want to see guys thrive. I want to see guys get paid. I want to see guys, have success in life. And, I want to continue to see the league open and growing. It's different. NBA salary cap, you're talking about 115, 20 million. So, where's the salary cap going to be? And I think when you're talking about the astronomical type of money, it's different. You're talking about billionaire owners, guys who could go get any player they wanted. If you didn't have a salary cap, the league would be destroyed in NBA. But here, I think we have a balance. We have teams that can compete and that can win. And I think you've seen it this year with how close and the discrepancy and small margins of victories between teams. We didn't know who was going to be in the playoffs. Until all the things happened with the Russian teams getting kicked out. So I think, that was a very important moment just to show how close the EuroLeague is and how a salary cap is not needed.
Okay, I'm pushing not a salary cap idea, but luxury tax. Let's say if you get over some percentage of the budget you spend for salaries only, then just like in the NBA, you should pay some fine, let's say. I mean, the club should pay some luxury tax fine. And this amount of money would be distributed among the EuroLeague teams, and especially the ones who need this money the most. I mean, the lower level teams, lower budget teams. I mean, that would be the right approach because me personally, I don't want to hurt players. I just want to help lower budget teams. And I think that it's just one of the rare options to help these teams because it's not easy. As I said, Eric, it's a big difference compared to the NBA. And it's a huge margin between biggest budget teams in Europe and the lower ones. So luxury tax maybe would be one of the better solutions in this situation.
Luxury tax is not a bad idea. So all the teams who stay within that framework or that percentage, they would receive the tax money split among all those things. That wouldn't be a bad idea. And I think that would help some of the bottom teams and allow those, because it's tough. Like a bottom EuroLeague team, they take a young player or a player who maybe is not as known. He shines, he has a great season. If they're not fortunate enough to get him on a 2-year deal, or if he has a reasonable buyout, he's scooped up immediately and taken by one of the bigger clubs. So I can see, how that could be frustrating. But I could work with a luxury tax. A salary cap, no way. But a luxury cap, I could work with that.
Yeah, if we had bigger NBA buyouts, I think it would also help. I mean, I just don't think it's fair from the European club's perspective to get your player bought out for the maximal buyout from the NBA teams is $100,000. I think it's just not fair because you invest way more money. You invest a lot of sacrifices, I would say. And that's one of the reasons why there's no place, no room for young guys in the EuroLeague, because young guys doesn't correlate with victories or it actually correlates with victories. You just have less victories if you play young guys. So it could be another way to help European teams financially, just to increase the ceiling of the buyout for the NBA teams. But FIBA has to be involved in this as well, because as I have understood, it's between FIBA and NBA.
Yeah, and it's almost like a tug of war, right? So you want the European teams to have more resources, to have more funding, because a lot of the best players in the NBA are those European players who came from that system and who grew. And even though the $775,000 is a lot of money, it's not enough to kind of help Europe climb. So the problem is the NBA is not going to give too much money, because if they give too much money, Europe will grow too much. And some of those star European players will be content to stay in Europe because it's home. They feel comfortable. But also the European teams can't raise the buyout too high, because if they do, NBA teams will be deterred from signing those players because it's too expensive. Why sign them when I can go get a kid who's American, who's from college, and he's free, and I can help develop him? So it's a double-edged sword. That player would have to be extremely talented for me to want to play $3-4 million for him, and I don't know what or who he can be yet. It's a steep tag. Unless you're talking about a Luka type talent, a Jokic, a Giannis, even those guys, I think no one's paying that buyout for them but Luka at that point in their game, because Jokic was a great player, but he was not playing at the EuroLeague or EuroCup level. So it was difficult to evaluate the ABA league. Giannis was playing in second division Greece. So can you really gauge that he's going to become this machine, this monster, the kid with this body? Like, these are things you cannot foresee. But Luka, I think he's a guy that they would have paid that price tag for. $4 or $5 million easy would have been an afterthought.
Yeah, you made a good point. I had a conversation with one of the NBA front office guys, and I also raised the same question. Let's make the buyout higher, and because it's peanuts for you. It's $2-3 million for the NBA club is just peanuts. But he repeated the same thing what you said. I mean, why we should pay a buyout for the player from Europe if we can sign for free, let's say, for no transfer fee, an NCAA guy who is coming out of college, which is, let's say, it prepares the product, the material better than European basketball, because it's
he actually gets to play
more closer to the NBA. Yeah, so with Europeans, there's also that transition period. You never know, he fits the NBA game, while in States, I mean, you have all these college guys who are getting prepared for that level, for that kind of basketball. So it's tough. It's a tough question, and probably that's no surprise we don't have clear solutions moving toward this topic.
They should just put something in maybe the player's contract, and it's something that they could do in the future, where maybe instead of $775, maybe they raise it to 1.2, 1.3, and then just have the players stretch their buyout. So that's what the NBA will be required to play, and based on the players' years in NBA, they could stretch it to where you got to pay X amount of dollars per year. So maybe you can kind of combine both. Or if a player becomes, a max player or something, maybe the club that helped tutor him could get a small percentage. You never know. But I just can't see the NBA going up too high, just based on the youth of the players and the unknown.
Coming back to Italy, do you have any suggestions for Virtus Bologna to achieve their goals for the next year? Because they have some big ambitions. They want to make the Final Four, actually. They have a very rich owner, Mr. Zanetti, who can throw a lot of money. He runs very good coffee business, and this team, they're not short of money. So they can sign big-time players, and just for everyone, I can go through the list of Virtus Bologna players who are under contract for the next season. And we have Teodosic, Paiola, Nico Mannion, Hackett, Bellinelli, Cordinier, Kyle Weems, Avudu Abbas, Kevin Hervey, probably he will leave Virtus, although he has contract. Jaite, Jakar Sampson, Toko Shingelia is most likely staying in Virtus. We have these rumors about Jordan Mickey signing with Virtus. Aquila Polonara is also close. There are some rumors that Milutinov might come, but he's also, Fenerbahce is also in the mix. He might end up staying in CSKA. So there are a few spots, like scorer spot, and probably one center is still missing for this team. Do you have any solutions for Mr. Zanetti to improve the roster to make the Final Four?
in my eyes, Milutinov would be a really good addition, because one of the reasons for it, Milan attacked Teodosic in each game, almost on every possession, whether that's from floppy, running on curls, or in pick and rolls, or whether if they switch, just the Tome goes into the post. And in series, it was a really important issue. So I think a big center, which can help them in the paint with the rim protection, it will be a nice pair up with the Teodosic, with Bellinelli. And it's, in my eyes, they need some more defense, and some rim protection would be huge. I think that would improve their roster. Also, together with Mickey coming, I think that's close to being an official deal. I think that would help them, and that would give them some more strength in the front court, but also on the defensive side.
What I saw, I watched a lot of Bologna games. Playing in the EuroCup, you wanted to see who your opponent could possibly be. And for me, they really struggled offensively. When Milos wasn't on the court or didn't have the ball, it seemed like nothing could get going. There was no creative playmaking. There was no true score. There was none of that. I think a lot of Jahith's success came from Milos in the pick and roll creating. I think Bellinelli can get going. He's a streaky scorer. But as you saw in the closeout game, they only had 2 guys in double figures. The offense just seemed stagnant. And I don't think it was like the coach's set or the plays. I think, he had a good system. I just think that they expected more from Nicolo Menin. I think just, him getting sick at the beginning of the season, him facing those injuries, they really had no backup point guard until they got Hackett, and Hackett was still kind of acclimating himself into the team, into the roster. He, wasn't there to do the creative scoring or playmaking, but he was there to kind of be the defensive guy next to Milos. And the problem was, if you wanted offense, right, you go Milos and Bellinelli. So you got good offense players, but then you have 2 glaring holes on defense, 2 big mismatches. And so then if you want defense, maybe you go with Codornia and Hackett, but then you just don't have the pick and roll play. You don't have Jahith getting involved. And I think they lack a pure scorer. I think Milutinov will be excellent for them because that rim protection, his ability to move, playing in Russia, I've seen firsthand how talented he is. He's a beast, an animal on offensive rebounds. He doesn't need the ball. He'll play the pick and roll, and he'll get you, 5 to 6 extra possessions a game, and limit 3 or 4 shots at the rim just on what he can do. And he'll allow, Milos or Bellinelli to kind of get over top of the screens, and you'll see this big 7'1", 7'2" guy just there playing flat defense, forcing a tough pull-up jumper. And not a lot of guards can make the pull-up. So I think if they're fortunate to get him, that would be excellent. I don't know if they can pay his salary because Cheska was paying a big sum to him. But I do think that they need another scorer, somebody who's young, maybe not super young, but somebody who's able to kind of be a change of pace guy for Milo, someone who has that experience a little bit, but still has that burst, that speed, that explosiveness. And without that, if they were struggling in the EuroCup, it's going to be hard to manufacture points in the EuroLeague as well. So, until they find that guy, maybe it's somebody in NBA, maybe it's a young up and coming guy, because I do believe they have a good system. They have great facility. They have excellent fans. They have the history, tradition. They have the respect from the refs. If they put together, maybe 1 or 2 guys that can kind of put some juice or some fuel into the offensive game, you could see a team that could potentially be a playoff team. I don't think they're Final Four based on this roster, but if they're able to add a guard or playmaker, somebody who can kind of make the difference in games, you could see them make that jump to a potential Final Four team.
Yeah, talking about scorers, there are still some interesting options in the European market. But for example, if things won't go well with Milutinov, I think that they will have to be very creative looking at some upgrades from the NBA, because after Milutinov in Europe, I don't see these big bodies, solid centers that would be a game changer. So they will have to be creative, but I mean, they have money first and foremost. They also have Sergio Scariolo, who worked in the NBA for a few years, so he might know what would be the best fit from the NBA to make this transition to European basketball. So I think that they have all the tools to make these changes. So it will be very interesting to see how this rich team will figure out their roster adjustments they need. Referees. Eric mentioned something about referees, and I have a problem to address with the referees and you guys complaining to refs all the time. I have to admit that these Italian and especially Spanish League finals, at some point, these games were just unwatchable. I hate watching players complain about some calls where you have a replay and you have a clear view that it was a foul or it was a right call, and in like 95% of these situations, it was a clear call and ref did a good decision, making that call. But all these players, and especially Real Madrid fans, can throw all the rocks at me, but especially Real Madrid team, it's just their thing, making this pressure on referees, complaining after each call. And I get it. It was game 2 when Barca tied the series. I completely agree. I think that refs kind of stole that game from Real Madrid, because in the last minute of the game, there was end one situation for Walter Tavares, but ref didn't call a foul, and the game was tied. And later, Barca won the game by 2 points, and they won the game after Higgins free throws. Although I think that was there was no contact between Tavares and Higgins, and he was sent to the free throw line, and he won the game for Barca with free throws. But other than that, there were a lot of good decisions. So I just don't get it. I want to get into your shoes, how to approach these situations, because I know that teams and I know that GMs and players like to make the pressure for the referees, but it's like a closed circle. If you make a pressure to the referee, you make his job harder, and it kind of raises the possibility of making mistakes later on the court. So how to handle this thing, how to help the referees, how to stay calm with their calls, and how not to make the game an event, a European game, and an event of 2.5 hours show here, which we kind of had with Spanish League games, for example.
Let me just answer to the first part of your question. Like, when you are in Italy and Spain, it's in the people's blood to do this, to like complain. And when you are in that atmosphere, it's really easy to get lost and just to do the same for the players, because most of the players are foreign guys. So, but it's when you are in that atmosphere for a year or two, it's really easy to get lost and on the court feel the atmosphere that's coming from the stands. And I think it really influences, together with the importance of these games, it really influences your decisions whenever you just see some calls getting wrong. But for example, when you're playing and you are just giving your 100%, and maybe there's a lot of contact in the finals. So you often can think that, well, wow, just it was the same call just 1 second ago on the other side. They didn't call anything, and now they're calling the same thing for me, and it's not fair. So I think it's just really easy to get lost in that atmosphere and in those countries. And but to answer the second part, how to do better, I don't know. Maybe Eric has some advice or how he deals with it, because I don't really know much players, and we can see we saw in these finals that they had trouble doing that.
No, I agree. I think, oftentimes we get caught up in the atmosphere. You're hearing things, the emotion, the criticalness of a game, the pressure from the coach, the fans, media, and you just wanting it, your own goals, your own, hopes and desires, your livelihood on the line. I think for me, I try to just focus on the game, and I only say something to the refs when it's warranted. My things are more like a conversation. I know that they're human, right? They can't get everything right. Just like me as a player, I can't make every shot. I can't make every right decision on the court. A ref could be right 98% of the time, but if those 2% come in that fourth quarter, that's all people will remember. So, I try to focus on the human aspect of it. If you're on a ref too hard, too much, he's not going to, respond to you, in the right manner. Sometimes he might be quick to give you a technical. If you're at home, sometimes it's not the right environment for them just to be throwing around technicals. So, you just have to be careful and cognizant of the fact that, you can't ride the horse too much. You got to pick and choose when you say something. I learned that the less I say, the more they hear me when I do say something, right? Because a guy who complains all the time, it's like, oh, whatever. But a guy who doesn't complain a lot, and when you do say something, well, I must have really missed that call if Eric said something to me. And I think, with the maturity level, with experience, you'll start to understand that, sometimes they miss calls. And I don't even get mad sometimes. I just say, all right, it's okay. Get the next one. But everybody doesn't have that composure. Everybody doesn't have the same stability mentally. And, when the stakes are high, as you see, people can kind of lose themselves.
We are asking one of the calmest guys in the Europe how to talk with the referees,
Yeah, I completely agree with you. For example, even our commentators are buying this idea of silent players complaining about refs. For example, if Lukas Lekavičius starts complaining to ref, it means that referee probably missed that call for sure, because he's the guy who's not speaking with them at all. So that's kind of a good approach, because if you have Rudy Fernandez approaching you as a referee, I mean, you know that he's always complaining. So it's just useless to have any conversation with him about any previous call. So, but anyway, I just want games to be shorter. Maybe some video reviews could be excluded, like just checking how much time left until the end of the second quarter. I mean, it's not decisive moments. I mean, we can make these games shorter and more user-friendly, I would say. And one interesting point is that I think that in EuroLeague, refs kind of does a great job controlling the emotions in games, but these emotions are just boiling over in the domestic leagues. And maybe it's because that it's easier to get on refs because they're also in Italy, for example. They're Italians. In Spain, they're Spanish. It's easier to get over them. And sometimes maybe you have some paranoia that, that guy has to be a Real Madrid guy or vice versa. So maybe that also takes into the place that these basketball teams, the GMs, the players know these local referees better, and that's why they just go over the limit sometimes, and they're just respecting more, let's say, these other faces or European referees. Maybe that also plays some role. I don't know.
And you know which referees you can talk to and which ones you can't. There's some refs, if you say anything, he might make your life difficult. He's going to throw a technical at you. And, that if you want the games to get shorter, tell your boy to unretire. No one's going to argue with him. Lamonica.
I had this question about Lamonica, because he's already retired, so you can say about him whatever you want. You won't be damaged in games. What kind of referee he was? Was it easy to have a conversation with him?
No,
was he fair?
No. He wasn't he was a good ref. It's just that I knew going into the game, I would look over and I would say, I can't say anything. Let me control my emotions, because he has a quick tee, and he does not tolerate too much conversation. So I would just know, and he's a guy that if he makes a call, he makes it with unwavering confidence. There's no doubt. It's almost like, you question my call? And he's a good ref. He's just the old school ref that it's tough to communicate with. With the more newer modern refs, they'll make a call, but they'll tell you, what you did. So sometimes I'm not even arguing. You might see me talking to a ref, and maybe I did something on defense. And so I'm going to ref, how can I guard him without you calling that foul? What can I do? And then a modern ref will say, okay, this is what you can do, Eric. And so now it's a good communication. I know what to do the next time. I won't be upset. Now I know why you caught it. But with some referees, you can't even have that conversation. They're right. Some of them have big egos, and that's what it is. But some are good guys you can talk to, and they're personable. So it's a mix, but your team will tell you. There will be a communication, and who to stay away from and who I can actually, conversate with on the court.
So, Eric, do you have team staff coming to you before the games, just telling, okay, there are going to be these three guys refereeing, so you guys need to calm down? Do you have that?
Oh, yes. Before the game, they'll come over. They'll be like, this is who's reffing today. He's quick on technicals. He gets technicals on flops.
Scouting report on reps. Huh?
Yes. Be cognizant of that, please. Control your emotions. He's a quick technical giver. They'll tell you, you'll know. And I even look at the refs. So when I played in EuroLeague or EuroCup, I go on the site, and you can look at it's basically a pregame show thing. And they show the leading scores of each team, assist guy, rebounds, all that stuff. I scroll right past all of that. Who's the referees? And it shows the three referees. It shows their picture, their names. I look and I'm like, okay. We got refs I can talk to today. Or, I should be very quiet. Let me just play basketball.
It's going to be a long night tonight, huh?
Yeah. And so it's just, little vet tricks, like things I learned, like, they're people at the end of the day. You have to respect them. If somebody continues to disrespect you or to talk to you, inappropriately, I can't imagine that they're going to like you. And, I don't know if refs do this or not, but a guy that they respect, who treats them appropriately, they're more likely to call, the game how it's supposed to be called. But if you're bluntly disrespectful or, treat them inappropriately, it'd be only human for me to feel some type of way towards you when you get fouled sometimes. I'm not saying that I would do it purposely, but like it's human nature. If you don't like a guy, I can't imagine you, giving him a 50-50 call, if that makes sense. So, you got to find that balance and, try to be respectful. And, I try to learn the names and, try to be, treat them like I would treat a coach or, anybody else with respect.
Okay, for the last part of the podcast, we have EuroCup approved the list of 20 participants for the next season. And now I'll just go shortly through the teams. It's Budućnost Podgorica, Cedevita Olimpija, Trento, Bursaspor, Gran Canaria, Hamburg, Hapoel Tel Aviv, Bourg-en-Bresse, Juventud Badalona, Lietkabelis Panevėžys, London Lions, Brescia, Paris Basketball, Prometei from Ukraine, Prometheus from Greece, Ulm, Śląsk, Wrocław, Turk Telekom, Cluj-Napoca, and Venice. And I'm going to the never-ending discussion: which competition is actually better, EuroCup or FIBA Champions League? And in this situation, probably it will be interesting to hear, Eric, your opinion. If you have offer on the table, the same amount of money, okay, let's say the same names of teams, the same image of these teams, and one playing in EuroCup and the other one is playing in Champions League. From the level perspective and from the organization, the management perspective, which offer you're taking?
So I think this is a very good question. It depends on the stage of your career. If you're a younger player and the salary is the same, the role's the same, the everything is the same level in terms of the team respect, the tradition, I think you take the EuroCup. I think it's the fastest way to the EuroLeague. I think there's more eyes on that. It's a proven staple. We've seen guys who've had success in the EuroCup sign on big teams. I think about it already. We have Jonathan Motley signed at Fener. We have Blossingame signed at Monaco. I seen somewhere that Will Cummins is getting interest, from EuroLeague team. I think it was Valencia.
That's true. Yeah.
You also have, so you see that staple. I'm not seeing all those guys from Champions League getting considered for those big budget, those big historical clubs. So for me as a player, Champions League is strong. It's getting better and better every year. It's really good. But I'm looking at what teams have the best security, the best financial stability, the best crowds, the best environment, play at the highest level. And as a young player, your goal should be able to get to the highest level as possible and to try to get the most money that you can. And that usually is going to lead to the EuroLeague. And right now, the EuroCup is still, I want to say, like the fastest way to get there. Now, granted, okay, if you're great in the Champions League, your team has success, yes, you can get there too. I'm just saying that I'm seeing more players who aren't making the Final Four or who aren't making a championship and are still getting there from the EuroCup level. So for me, I would choose the EuroCup, but I do think Champions League is gaining. I think part of that has to do with the Russian teams being excluded, because now you done lost 2 or 3 teams that are playing EuroLeague now that would be in the EuroCup, or 2 or 3 Russian teams that would be at the EuroCup level. And that would only increase the depth and the talent, throughout the league. But, as long as it's a feeder system to the EuroLeague, as long as guys continue to get signed, I think that's the play here. But you're going to see more and more teams, sometimes joining Champions League because I guess it's more profitable, for their organization, with the rewards and, the bonuses per game, etc. But I think it's still EuroCup. But I do think the bridge is getting smaller and smaller as far as talent-wise. And they're both very, very good leads.
Yeah, especially this year, the conversation is different because, as I mentioned, the Russian, excluding Russian teams, kind of took 2 powerhouses of the EuroCup. It's Unix Kazan, if they didn't make the playoffs and if they weren't higher than Monaco, for example, in the top 8, and Lokomotiv. These are two very solid organizations which kind of almost were in the mix of winning the title. And then you have the situation with Valencia and Partizan getting wildcards in the EuroLeague, which in a normal reality, let's say, it wouldn't have happened. It was never like 3 teams getting promotion to the EuroLeague from the EuroCup. And then usually Monaco is also an exception because it was the first EuroCup team that made the top 8 and stayed in the EuroLeague for the second year. So, and we have Virtus Bologna winning the EuroLeague. So we're talking about 6 very solid teams leaving EuroCup or for the EuroLeague or just missing the EuroCup, and it's a huge loss for the EuroCup. I mean, and the thing is, the way they made this pool of teams for the next year is that they also looked for organizations to replace these powerhouses. But the reality is that in Europe, there are not as many very strong, powerful clubs you could attract to the EuroLeague because there's not enough talent first, and then these big teams like Galatasaray, for example, some other clubs, they're under contracts with FIBA, and the fine for exiting that contract is something around 1 million, and it's a huge fine for these clubs. So there are a lot of different factors which has to be taken into consideration why this bridge is getting closer right now. And EuroCup, or let's say EuroLeague, because they run the EuroCup, they decided to go that way, bringing some different markets, like the team from London, the team from Paris. You can remember that for all those years, Jordi Bertomeu was talking about these hidden markets, these markets with huge potential, which is London, which is Paris. So probably this political situation, this unusual situation for the EuroCup, kind of led them towards testing new markets and checking how London is ready for the EuroCup or for the EuroLeague. What's all about that Paris project? And for example, if Wembanyama is going to Paris team, which is very likely from what I hear, he's very, very close of leaving Asvel and going to Paris. I mean, that would be a huge promotion, both from the EuroCup competition and for this Paris project. So there are a lot of different factors which you have to take into consideration, especially when you're looking at the pool of teams which we have for the next season. And August, if you have offer from Lithuania, from Rytas and Lietkabelis, the same amount of money, Champions League and EuroCup, which team you're going to?
I mean, there is not much to add what you guys said. I'm taking EuroCup. It's just, I think there's definitely the gap is closing in, but there is still this hierarchy in Europe that sees EuroCup as the second level and Champions League as the third one. And as a young player, if I want to grow my career, I think the GMs of the EuroLeague just see the EuroCup as the second tournament of Europe, and it is what's important for a young player. So definitely would be harder to choose if I'm at the end of my career, maybe the last years. But if I'm for example, an American coming from the NCAA, just starting my career, and I have offer from EuroCup and Champions League, I'm definitely taking EuroCup.
Yeah, and I think that even though some of the teams in the EuroCup left, I think it's still going to be strong. I mean, you think about Budugnos, Cedevita Vita, those are two good teams. You've seen the Bursaspor sign some of the core guys. They can make a run. Gran Canaria was dominant all season, and they kind of flamed out in the playoffs. Made some poor decisions in transition on a break late in the game. I think they had a 3-on-1 or 2-on-1. A guy gets a charge, kind of changes the result of the game. I think also Juventud, they had a great year, and then they lose at home on a surprise game like that they didn't see coming. You already talked about Lietkabelis, what they did. Tough, good coach. Another team I like is Turk Telekom. They always have a solid budget. They put together a good roster. And then the sleeper is Venice. I think Venice is a team that will have a lot of success in the EuroCup this year. And I think they started off slow last year, but I think this year they'll be pretty good. So, I mean, you see, like, there's still some talent. There's still some good teams. There's some teams with budgets there. And I think it will be a more balanced, more competitive, which will be better for fans.
Yeah, the race for the EuroLeague wildcard through the EuroCup next season, it will be open. I don't remember the season where it was such an uncertainty who might win the EuroCup, because you can remember that even before the last season, I don't know what you guys thought in local, but everybody was talking that, Partizan and Virtus, for sure, they're in the finals, they're competing for the title. In the previous years, I mean, some of these names were always in the mix. Now, you mentioned all these nice teams, solid teams, but looking at this picture, it's really hard to predict who might win the EuroCup, and this will make this competition very interesting to follow, probably. August, do you have your favorites to win it all? If I was Budućnost, all these Balkan teams, they are unpredictable, and I can easily see Budućnost owner, for example, throwing a lot of millions just to make the EuroLeague, either through the EuroCup or through the ABA League, because as I said, the path was never so sexy, let's say, for these EuroCup mid-level teams.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of guys are going to be motivated to spend more money to get high caliber players, guys with experience, and to try to do something special for organization. I could definitely see that.
If I had to make my guess at this early stage of the new season, I would probably go with Gran Canaria winning it. And they are playing like Cedevita in the finals, something like that. I think these two teams just have the experience in the EuroCup. They have good budgets. They have good coaches. They made quite runs also this season, and I think these two teams would be my favorites, early favorites for the next one.
Who's your final four? If you had to guess,
maybe Bursaspor making another run, but they have, to change a lot of pieces. And looking at the list right now, Badalona. These four.
No Italian love, huh? None for your Italian team.
Not next year.
Venice should be on the verge of making the Final Four, I guess.
That's
I see them
guess.
as my fifth team, at least. So Cedevita, Budućnost, I think that only one of them will make the Final Four. Gran Canaria or Badalona, and then Venice. It's crazy how we're making predictions not even knowing the rosters and talking about it in June 20, but...
that's fun.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate though. If I had to guess, those 5 teams I think will be in the mix that you named.
But I'm really excited to see what this London Lions team, how they will perform in the EuroCup. It's a huge chance for them, and I think that now they have right people behind the club, the GM with the NBA experience, and I heard that Brad Berman is the GM of London Lions. Previously, he worked for Memphis Grizzlies for a few years, and he has some interesting ideas of bringing G League guys to Europe. He knows, what it takes to make this transition. He's working for London for one year already, so he has these interesting ideas. And I've heard that they won't. At least they have this ambition to fight for the EuroCup title, and they won't be that punching bag that everybody might think about them. As if they will be punching bags. So,
with the all G League roster.
Not all the G League roster, but they're gonna try to bring some G League talent, which was underrated by European teams.
So guys with no European experience who've never played in Europe, they think they're gonna compete for a title.
I'm not saying that they bring 12 G League guys. They might bring like 4 or 5 G League guys, couple of EuroLeague veterans. I don't know. Maybe Eric will get an offer. Don't underestimate them.
I'm just saying
he's going to play with the G League guys.
I'm just saying that I think G League guys do have talent, but there's a stepping stone to adjusting to Europe. There's a grace period. There's understanding how the game is called, how it's played, the strategy. I think it's a lot to ask for a player who's never played in Europe to lead a team to a deep playoff run or anything. Even me speaking for myself, coming fresh out of college, the growth I took as a player, understanding the European game, it's night and day. And I think that if you don't have proper veterans on a roster, guys to kind of lead the way, to kind of bridge the gap, to teach the game as well, that will help speed up the process. But if you just think you're going to go out there with a whole bunch of 22 to 24-year-old kids, and you think you're going to tell them to go be competitive, to be mature, to be professional, to do things the right way in London, I think you're full of. I think you're expecting too much.
Hey, relax. I mean, John Motley, he's a great example, right? He was coming from the G League.
He's an NBA guy, though. He had a two-way deal. You didn't say two-way. You said G League.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. These borderline NBA players and G League guys. Yeah, because
those are two different type of players.
Okay. Yeah. Just for clarification. G League guys, borderline NBA players, two-way contract players. That's what was their idea. So, I mean, you know, John Motley, Donta Hall coming to EuroLeague from the G League. Then you sign veteran guard with the EuroLeague experience, EuroCup experience, Eric McCollum. You put some other veterans, some local guys. It might be an interesting mix for the, let's say, competitive EuroCup season. I'm not saying that they're gonna win it. Yeah, of course.
If you mix a couple veterans in to kind of like bridge the gap, like, you know, I tried to help Jonathan Motley a lot, try to tell him how things go in Europe, how to adjust. I think that he already had the talent, he already had the skill. He just needed someone to teach him how things work here, how things go, how to be a professional in Europe, not just in the NBA. And he knew all those other things. But I think once you had the vet, that was a difference. I think the same with Dante Hall. You know, he had those veterans around him. Will Thomas, another guy who's been all over the world, who's played at a high level, who's won championships. So if they mix and match that youth, that talent with some experienced guys, then it's a different ballgame. But if it's just all G League players, I'm highly skeptical. But if there's a mix, okay, I can work with that.
Okay, guys, that was a quality time. I had a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here. I just hope that you enjoyed it as much as myself.
Yeah,
that was super fun.
Eric McCollum, Augustas Šuliauskas, Donatas Urbonas, the first appearance with this lineup on the URBONUS podcast. Thanks all for watching us, and follow us on BasketNews.com and BasketNews YouTube channel as well. You can follow Augustas Šuliauskas on Twitter, August04. He makes great video breakdowns for us, but at the same time, he kind of frequently posts something on Twitter, and you just can follow Eric McCollum on basketball courts of EuroLeague and EuroCup and just enjoy his game and the way he reads games and stuff like that. So thank you all, and see you next time probably.